What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm once again back on Need for Speed Heat. Now, the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I know for a fact, even after all this time, like, don't get me wrong, I do know this game came out in 2019, but I know for a fact right now, this game easily could have had a map expansion, bro. And the funny part about it is you could probably see it just a bit over here on the top right part of the map. And I'm actually going to drive over to that area in a second. And then you can also see another part of this over here that's actually going to be fairly detailed. And there's even going to be a railroad track that goes over it to this side. Now, the funny part about this, though, I do know I'm probably going to be pretty dang late on this because a lot of people probably thought about a full DLC coming into this game. Like, look at this, for example, right here, guys. I am so far up into the map that you can't even see the map. Like, this legit goes so far now. They're probably not going to add an insane amount of stuff to the game like that because that is a lot of room to cover. But it really does kind of make me laugh though because they easily could have added one. Now I do know right now that Need for Speed Unbound is getting updates, which to be honest I am so happy that it's actually being updated. And I'm not even going to lie here though, I'm actually pretty impressed with the Speed Pass and the content they have added to it so far. We all probably thought the game was probably going to end back in Volume 5, but no, they are still updating Need for Speed, which is just so awesome. I love it. But you know what's funny about that though is I was playing Need for Speed Unbound for a bit yesterday and I was like, wait a second. They easily could have updated Need for Speed Heat and most likely did a map expansion to it because they pretty much had the entire map set up for that and that would have been insane. Now I could be wrong here, let me know in the comments below. But the last Need for Speed game I actually think that got a full map expansion or like, something being added onto the map that was in there was Most Wanted 2012. Could be wrong, let me know in the comments below, but I think it was the Terminal Velocity, I think it was called, which that was so much fun in that airport. Now, the funny part about that, though, is I do know a lot of people weren't the biggest fan of Most Wanted 2012, but you know what? I have to admit it. I absolutely love Most Wanted, guys. I thought it was fun. Like, I know the game obviously had its flaws, or some people were saying it was like a burnout type of game, but man, I love the multiplayer design in that game, and the cars were fun. I just had a great time in there. When that Terminal Velocity DLC came out, I was like, yo, we got a whole airport, bro. This is crazy. They add a whole part to the map. And I was like, wait a second. Have we had that in a recent Need for Speed game? Need for Speed Heat could have had this done, which probably would have made this game even a bit more popular than it was. Now, the funny part about this, though, guys, I do understand this game is obviously going to be over 4 years old, so we're obviously not going to be getting a map expansion. But man, it really is funny to dream about that and think about it, though, because you really could see that in the map design. They pretty much had the entire right, like, middle part of the map and like the top left and all that was pretty much nothing, and they probably could have added like roads or like a small city to both sides of it. And then, ooh, wait a second, guys, pause all that. Not only could they actually add a map expansion, but imagine a campaign expansion on top of it to where you had to travel to those other parts of the map to actually do it, or you had to go there for the campaign to unlock it or something like that. That would be dope. But then again, I feel like I'm probably losing my mind a bit here because we do know Unbound is currently being updated, and I'm currently still playing Heat wondering about a map expansion. I guess both games have their positives and negatives, am I right? Either way though, funny thing is actually playing Unbound and actually having the Volume 7 update, it really does make me go, wait a second, why wasn't Heat updated, bro? Like it could have been, or I guess in some ways you can also say why wasn't Payback updated? Why wasn't Need for Speed 2015 updated? And I could probably keep going with this. But I have to say, guys, I do understand a lot of the games obviously were scrapped a bit or really quick. For example, in Need for Speed Heat, all we pretty much had was one update to it. Or I guess in some ways there's probably going to be a few updates because you also got like the black market stuff and all that. But either way, guys, it really isn't going to be a ton of updates to the game, and you can probably tell that it was most likely going to be scrapped a bit too early in its life cycle. Don't get me wrong, I do understand some games aren't looking good, or sometimes they're not going to be in the best state ever that they could have been in. For example, Motorfest is currently in this exact state, unfortunately. But I do feel like Need for Speed Heat, though, even when it came out, was pretty dang populated, to where they probably could have added a map expansion also, extending the campaign, and most likely adding a campaign DLC because it was, what, 6 hours long for that matter, which is really short. Like, after you do it, a lot of people are like, wait, what do I do now, bro? That kind of ruined like the entire thing. But imagine if the campaign was longer, they added a map expansion, added some car DLC, some maybe cool things to like multiplayer. Bro, I guarantee right now Need for Speed Heat would still be populated, and they probably could have built upon Unbound more, like maybe released it a bit later. Now, the funny part about this, though, is I do know people are probably going to be like, Blocked, you do know we're in 2024, right, bro? This game came out in 2019, which is going to put you a few years late on that. Like, they're obviously not going to be doing it. But I feel like the biggest thing about this, though, is playing Need for Speed Unbound and actually getting into it a bit and seeing how they're going to be updating it probably brings me to a point of like, wait a second, why did they not do this with Need for Speed Heat? Or, that game had so much potential, why was it scrapped? It just, I don't know, man. It kind of just makes me think about that stuff. Like, you can see that when playing it, that they easily could have had a lot more stuff in it, or, looking at the lovely campaign, you're like, yo, this is kind of short. Did y'all cut it out? Did you have an entire map DLC planned for, but you're like, nah, we ain't gonna do it, scrap it. Let's work on Need for Speed Unbound or something like that. But who knows, guys? For all we actually know, they probably had a DLC plan for this game, but they're probably looking at it like, you know what, let's stop here after the black market stuff, and then boom, moving over to the next Need for Speed game. Maybe we'll update that one. Now we're currently not going to have the next Need for Speed game for a while. Do stay tuned for that video, and I'll go more in depth on why I think that is. But I just feel like, though, guys, it kind of makes me upset looking at this because Need for Speed Heat was great. Now, before you say anything, though, Need for Speed Unbound is also great. I just feel like in a lot of ways, though, they really can build upon some of these games a bit better instead of, like, instantly scrapping it. Whereas I would say, like, updating it, adding all kinds of stuff to it would not only keep it populated, but it would most likely make a lot more players play that game and then go, you know what? This Need for Speed is great. I love the way they're actually updating it and actually bringing content to it. I am definitely going to get the next Need for Speed game because they'll probably do the exact same thing to it instead of, like, looking at how Need for Speed Heat was where they scrapped it. It probably made a lot of players worried about buying Need for Speed Unbound because, that game could have got scrapped or something could have happened to where it most likely could have been canceled at Volume 5. What if, guys, for a second here, they never actually added more volumes to Need for Speed Unbound? Then you're pretty much going to have that game basically being bare bone with some stuff in it, and they probably just scrapped it, then boom, a new Need for Speed game's going to come out in the future. But guess what? A lot of players are most likely going to look at that and go, well, if they're going to release this Need for Speed game, aren't they just going to forget about it in like 5 months? Why would I even buy it? I just feel like that would also help its reputation, man. And there can also be other examples of this, like not saying just Need for Speed had this happen. We've probably seen it happen with other games to where you're like, yo, let's get these updates out there, and then boom, they stop updating it because why not? They work on the next title. And then boom, they start doing the same thing with that one. It's probably going to be a pretty bad cycle if you ask me. At least I think it is. But overall, though, guys, I would like to know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Do you also think that Need for Speed Heat could have easily gotten some type of map expansion? Like, I feel like it could have. And who knows, maybe it was even a planned thing, but it was most likely canceled.